The planets of the Galera system were no strangers to conflict. For centuries, the mighty alien kingdoms, ruled by powerful queens and warrior races, had clashed with each other over resources, territory, and pride. In the midst of these conflicts, one tale stood out, one that had traveled across galaxies, whispered in the corridors of spaceports, and sung in the great halls of distant star systems. The story of Queen Kalina of the Renner tribe. Kalina was no ordinary queen. She was a warrior first, a ruler second. Her beauty was unparalleled, her strength legendary, and her cunning unmatched. She ruled with an iron fist, her word law across the star systems. But more than her iron rule, it was her magical sword, Varric's Edge, that made her a living legend. Forged in the heart of a dying star, the blade was imbued with a power so ancient and pure that it could cleave through anything: spaceships, shields, even time itself. The sword was a symbol of Kalina's dominance, and it had been passed down through generations of her ancestors. It was her birthright, her legacy, and no one dared challenge her possession of it. That is, until he came into her life. Jared Stone was a human, a man from a distant and unremarkable planet known as Earth. He had no business being in the Galera system. He was nothing but a lowly explorer, caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. His ship had been damaged after an uncharted space storm, and his only choice was to land on a nearby moon to repair it. What he didn't know, however, was that this moon was Kalina's sacred ground. And on that moon lay Varric's Edge, the lost sword of the Renner tribe, a relic that had been stolen and forgotten centuries ago. Jared had stumbled upon the sword purely by accident. While repairing his ship, he had ventured into a cave for shelter, seeking shelter from the harsh environment outside. In the depths of that cave, he had discovered the legendary weapon, resting on an altar of gold, untouched by time. He had no idea what he had found, but he knew it was powerful. And so, he took it. He didn't know the cost. He didn't know the history. It wasn't until he returned to his ship and tried to make his escape that he realized his mistake. A small fleet of alien ships had intercepted him, and before he could engage his thrusters, the familiar figure of Queen Kalina appeared on his screens, her face framed by the burning sun behind her. Her voice was cold, authoritative. "Human," she hissed through the calm, "you have taken what does not belong to you." Jared's heart raced. The words in his head scrambled for meaning. What was she talking about? He had no idea who she was or what she meant. He held the sword up to the screen, the glowing edges casting a red light across his face. "This? I found it. It's a weapon. I thought I might be able to use it to get out of here. My ship was damaged. No," she roared, her voice breaking through his words. "You have no idea what you hold. That sword belongs to me. It is my birthright, forged by the gods themselves. It holds power that no mortal, especially a human, should wield. You dare to return it to me after you've defiled it?" Jared wasn't sure what was happening. He had only wanted to survive. He had only wanted to fix his ship. He never imagined he would be confronted by a woman, an alien queen, no less, demanding a magical sword back. As the realization hit him, he decided it was best to return it. He didn't want any part of whatever ancient ritual or power this sword was tied to. He had made a mistake, and he needed to correct it. But as he sent the coordinates to Kalina's ship, something strange happened. The moment he entered the coordinates, his hands trembled, and the blade pulsed in his grip, an eerie glow emanating from its core. The Queen was waiting. Her ship, a massive war cruiser, appeared on his scanner as she descended from the stars like a vengeful force of nature. The docking bay opened with a mechanical hiss, and the air inside the chamber seemed to thrum with energy as Kalina stepped onto his ship. She was magnificent. Her long, flowing hair shimmered with hues of blue and silver, and her battle armor, adorned with ornate golden symbols, gleamed under the light of the ship's artificial suns. But her eyes were the most terrifying feature, eyes full of ancient power and fury. "You return it, but you do so far too late, human," she spat, stepping closer. "I didn't know what it was. I just wanted to get away," Jared tried to explain, holding the sword out to her. Her eyes narrowed as she reached for the sword. The instant her fingers touched the hilt, a shock of energy surged through the ship, causing every light to flicker. Jared stumbled backward, his body jerking from the sudden blast of power that seemed to radiate from the blade. "Foolish human," Kalina muttered. "This is not just a sword. This is a force of nature, and you have no idea how it works. You do not understand its magic, its bond to me. The moment you touched it, you triggered a chain of events that I cannot undo. You have now tied yourself to this weapon, and in doing so, to me." Jared's heart raced. "Wait, you mean I—" "Yes," Kalina said, cutting him off. "You have bound your life to the sword. You have angered the gods, and for that, there will be consequences. But now you belong to me." Her grip on the blade tightened, and the magic in the air became overwhelming. The sword thrummed with power, its energy practically alive in her hands. Jared felt it, the pull, the weight, the inevitable doom that seemed to be closing in around him. He had made a grave mistake. As the power of the sword surged through her, Kalina turned her gaze back to Jared. The fury in her eyes was almost unbearable. "You will regret this." She swung the sword in a powerful arc, but instead of striking him down, a shield of light erupted from the blade, wrapping itself around her, as if it was protecting her from the very force she had unleashed. Kalina staggered back as her golden armor glowed in tandem with the sword's power. Jared fell to his knees, breathing heavily. "Please, I didn't mean to. I'm sorry." Kalina looked down at him, her anger slowly turning into something else, something more profound, a mix of pain and realization. The energy of the sword flickered, and for a moment, she seemed vulnerable, as if the connection had drained her in some way. "You are not my enemy, human," she whispered, almost to herself. "But you have taken from me what I can never truly get back. You cannot return what was already lost." Jared looked up at her. "So what happens now?" Kalina paused, staring at the sword in her hand. Then she turned to him, her voice filled with quiet resolution. "Now we face the gods together." Her grip tightened on the sword, but this time the energy wasn't as violent. Instead, it pulsed gently, as if in agreement. The two of them, bound by fate, would stand together, their destinies entwined by the magical weapon that had caused so much chaos. "I will not kill you," Kalina said, her voice steady now. "But you will help me restore what was lost. You will help me reclaim my kingdom, and you will prove yourself worthy of holding the sword you tried to discard." Jared nodded, the weight of his actions heavy on his shoulders. He had learned more than he had expected, and his journey had just begun. Together, they would find the balance. Together, they would face the gods themselves.